Well, good afternoon. Have you ever had one of those days when nothing wanted to go right? Well, it seems like that's what's going on for me. Every time I take one step, it seems like I'm going two steps backward. So maybe I'll catch up one of these days, but at the point right now, I think since everything else has gone south, I'm going to just give you kind of a bits and pieces overview of a few really simple sort of a fall off of the train type of ideas that I have here that have worked really good for me. The first one is not my idea, but it's a lot of exasperation trying to roll up a bandsaw blade in a form that you could hang it up on the wall out of the way, and I'll show you how that works in just a minute. The second thing I think I will show you today is what I call a poor boy router lift for a router table, and it's just made out of bits and pieces that I found around the shop, and I think the only thing that I bought besides the router was the 1/2 inch by 13 ready rod and a couple of nuts. The rest of it is all just things that I was able to scrounge up and make the thing out of. Anyway, we'll show you that in a little bit. The third thing that I'll show you today is a clamp rack or hanger, and it attaches to the end of your garage roll-up door rail, and plumb simple, doesn't cost you much to make it, and it works really good. So anyway, let's get started. First of all, we'll do the bandsaw blade fold-up procedure. Like I say, it's not my original idea, but it sure works great. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to give you a little demonstration. I've seen lots of people give this demonstration before, but I think it's worth repeating again, and that's how to roll up a bandsaw blade. So what I'm going to do, first of all, have your gloves on, of course, your thumbs pointing out like so, and one foot down here on the floor, and I put a rug down here so that the concrete won't damage the teeth on the saw blade. Okay, first I take my left hand, roll it around like this. Then I take my right hand, roll it around like this, and then hope I can get my gloves untangled. Then take it with one hand, go down to my foot, take a hold of it. Now follow me up. And tangled up again. I'll cut this out. Okay, then you can adjust. Just kind of hold it in your hands and adjust it around until you get everything kind of nice and even. And there we are. We have our bandsaw all folded up and ready to put away. All we have to do now is take a little bread tie or something like this and tie it in a couple of places. We can hang it up on the wall out of the way where it's not going to hurt anybody, and it won't get dulled up from being banged around. Well, there my router table is in all of its glory. It's all made out of scrap except for the tabletop, which is made out of Lexan plastic, which is pretty nice. It, for the most part, doesn't scratch or anything like that. And then I have added to that my homemade fence that works really good. And of course you can see that I've got a cutout here in the Lexan where the router can be removed if I want to. That works really super. But let's get to the point of what I was going to show you. Down underneath you will see here's my Hitachi 3 horsepower router, and attached to the bottom of it is my homemade poor boy router lift. Basically what it is some scrap lumber and a piece of 1/2 inch ready rod that I bought at Home Depot, and a couple of nuts. So there's one nut that is fastened into the wooden wheel, and nothing more, nothing fancy, just a round wheel that I made here in the shop. Then up here at the top I've got this little block of wood that I made to set on the lower part of the router, and I've given a little space underneath it there so that the airflow can circulate out of the bottom of the motor, which is kind of important. Down underneath, this sets on a shelf here in my router table, and I've got a piece of steel there and a little short piece of pipe to give a little space there so that I don't knock my knuckles when I'm adjusting the thing. And it's really works super good. Just crank the thing like so, and the router goes up or down, whichever you want to go. And I don't know why, but I wrote on top of it here, up and down, so that I can see where to go with it. Okay, that's kind of an overview of it in the machine. Now I'm going to take it out, and we'll put it on the workbench, and I'll show you the details. The thing that I neglected to tell you earlier was that I made this little block that sits underneath the bottom of this lift so that I can remove it, and I've got a larger hole in the shelf because there just isn't quite enough room in there to get the thing out. So by doing this, then I am able to rock this over to one side and get it out from underneath my router. The basics of this, like I said, you know, the little piece of pipe, just a piece of plastic out of a trailer house or something like that, sits on top of that, and the washer, and then like so, and then under here I've got a little crazy here, and I screwed a washer in underneath here to hold the epoxied nut into the wheel, and it kind of held it square while it dried. The epoxy hardened up so that it won't, you know, so the wheel doesn't wobble. It's pretty straight, if you can see that. Okay, this is how I fixed the blocks of wood that I wanted to use to set underneath the router. And there's two shoulders on my Hitachi on each side of the motor, and I can set the two shoulders on that, and there's plenty of room here for air to flow out of the vents on the bottom of the motor. Okay, that kind of gives you an overview. Here's another little idea that I got. You know how sometimes you're always banging your knuckles when you're trying to loosen the ferrule on your router to take the bit out? Well, I bent my tool just a little bit so that I could get my hand down in there on the thing and tighten or loosen without banging my knuckles. And in addition to that, you know how it is, you tighten your router bit into the router itself, and then when you use the thing and you think it's time to change the router bit, and so you reach down there with your wrench and you try to turn it, and you can't. It's just locked in there tight. That'll happen sometimes. So what I've done, taken a piece of wood, any old piece of wood will work, and then this is actually two pieces that are glued together. So what I have done is cut a slot down so far in the thing so that it's just exactly the same size as my tool, you see, and slide it in there, and I can put it on to the nut on the router arbor and lock it in place to hold it, or use another wrench to hold the other half, I've got all kinds of leverage to loosen it. But I've got to caution you, if you build something like this, I would say that you never want to use it to tighten, because you can over tighten and make a real mess for yourself. Okay, last but not least, here's my homemade clamp rack, if you want to call it that. And see, here's my rail that the overhead door connects to, and then it comes back to about here, and right here is the end of the rail for the garage door, and the rest of it I just added on with one bolt there, then went up here and went into the ceiling with some strap that I bought at Home Depot, and then screwed it into the ceiling at where one of the ceiling joists are. This is just some of that angle iron that you buy bulk that has all the holes drilled in it. What I did there was just screw a piece of wood on top of it there for the clamps to clamp over top of, and there's really no great rocket science to the idea. It's just something that worked out really good. So this is going to be the final one for today, and we'll just sign off, and now you've got an idea what's up with Wayne. Not much really, but here we are doing the best we can. Hope you have a good weekend. Bye bye.